Friends, colleagues and listeners, quick announcement, a live face-to-face conference at long last. 5th to the 7th of September, it's going to be at the Grand Hyatt in Athens, and I'm talking about the Air Cargo Handling Logistics Conference, which also has Air Freight Pharma in association with Cool Chain, AGS, Airline Ground Services in association with ASA Leadership Forum, and on top of that, we've got ULD Care. Des Fatanis is going to be the chairman, myself and Stan Rafe, co-moderators. Hard talk, direct questions, great panel, great speakers. Please join us, and all details are shown below in the link. Friends, colleagues and listeners, here we are, and we've got a lovely special podcast session today with somebody that I've enjoyed their company, I consider a friend as a colleague, and somebody I've got an awful lot of respect for. And the person I'm talking about is, yes, you may have guessed it, it's Henrik Camback, who is currently the SVP Cargo Operations for Emirates, but will soon be leaving that title and role. So we'll probably title this exercise, Henrik, as the end of an era.
Well, thank you, Chris, and thank you for inviting me to the show today. It has indeed been quite interesting, and after 42 years in transport, it's about time in a not far future to hang the coat and concentrate on a non-work life.
Yeah, good on you, mate. But I'll tell you what, when you say 42 years, you don't look it. So whatever, I would imagine that you're now going to go into cosmetics and you're going to be using that moisturizing cream or whatever the secret ingredients are that you rub all over your face, your eyes, and especially that forehead, mate. That looks like a Botox forehead, if ever I've seen one.
Until now, I have not used anything, but you never know what can happen.
Yep, you never know. I look forward to that. But seriously, an end of an era. I remember like we've come in contact an awful lot, and we were the original COAG and ICHC, and I remember a few of us used to nickname you our legal representative because you were always bang on with compliance and control issues, and it was something that stood you out, Henrik. So what I'm going to ask you now, okay, just to kick us off, because I'm not going to go into some of the obvious questions and not going to go into too much detail about COVID and what it's done, but more what we should be doing moving forward. But the role that you took on 6 years ago? 6 years ago?
8 years.
8 years?
Yeah.
My God,
time flies.
That has gone quick. 8 years ago.
Time flies when you're fun.
Holy Moses, that is, yeah. Right, well, okay, so be honest now, okay, when you got that role, how did you feel and how have you enjoyed it over these 8 years?
Yeah, but I've enjoyed it tremendously. I mean, given the age that I have one of the people who saw Emirates come alive. Nobody knew who they were. Suddenly people started to talk about this airline from the Middle East. Suddenly they were a size of the company I used to work for, and suddenly they were very big. So I've had the pleasure from the distance to see Emirates grow and Ram, you can say, materializing his vision. And I was obviously very, very pleased and very proud that Emirates would take me on to fill the role I fill today, because what they have created with Sky Cargo is for the industry unique, and it has been a pleasure to be allowed to be part of it.
Yep, no, I can imagine that. And an awful lot of that opportunity and allowing you a certain freedom and allowing you to make certain decisions, that comes with a management team who are confident that they pick the right man and they know what he's doing and they support him.
But Chris, you touch on something, I think is quite important, is that you choose a job, but you also choose a boss. Yeah. And you meet many people who get into trouble during their career and so forth. And when I think back, often people have had problems, which has also been, you can say, not that they chose the wrong job, but they chose the wrong boss. So if I'm going to give an advice to younger people, look at the job, but also do yourself a great favor. Look at your boss. And I have in my career been very lucky with working for some great people. Nabil as head of Sky Cargo, Robert van de Beek, Uli Ogerman at Cargolux, people back in my Danish time that you can say chose to use me, give me the freedom to do stuff. And that has hopefully given something back to the companies.
Yeah, no, 100%. Very wise words there, very wise words. And equally, when people they don't necessarily leave a brand or a major company. They leave a bad manager or bad controlling managers. And I think organizations don't realize how negative somebody who, some of the politicians and the ego merchants, they've got such a terrible impact on a group of people. It can be devastating for several years. And then all of a sudden, breath of fresh air comes in, some changes are made, and, it's almost like a little magic trick, but it's fantastic. But taking away all those good things, you must have had an awful lot of challenges when you first came in. Can you give us a few of them and how you addressed them?
Yeah, but of course we had it. First of all, it was a challenge for me to understand, to work in a different culture. I come from Northern Europe, have been responsible in Denmark and Sweden and Luxembourg. And so you could say I had a Northern European professional background, being base trained as a forwarder, then spent 14 years on the ground handling side, and then jumping onto the airline side. So I thought I knew the business from a technical perspective, but obviously there was a lot of learning to get done on the cultural side here, where we have primarily a West Asian workforce, to understand how they function, and knowing that if I wanted to be successful with my job, it was not about me telling them what to do, but me understanding how such a culture functions and how do you create success. So that was my first challenge, was to get on board, but also very quickly learning that it is like in many situations that the most important job you have as a leader or as a manager is to find a team and then let them do it. There's a saying here that I picked up in an Arabic management course, where they had the headline, "Don't micromanage, micro follow up." And that goes back to this: let people do the job, choose them, let them do it. Don't tell them necessarily everything, but then follow up that it's actually being done. And that actually, you can also say the very old golden rule in many religions is, be to others the way you want others to be to you. And if you manage your people like that, then you're probably in a good situation, because would I like to be spoken down to by a manager? No, thank you, of course not. And consequently, I shouldn't do it to the people working for me either. So the first thing I think was, of course, the cultural path. And then the other things was more, you can say, technical things. We went through the whole development of pharmaceutical products that today transport more than 200 tons in pharma every day, and it's a solid part of our revenue stream.
So fantastic.
All the technical aspects that goes with this was, you can say, good challenges. And you could also say, Chris, that in many ways I was happy, but this is hindsight, right? I was happy that I only got this job at not my youngest age, because I would not have been ready. I may have been ready from a very technical perspective, but not from the people management perspective and the understanding of, or attempt to understand how to make people become successful with what they do.
That's quite that's very, very profound there as well, because people assume now with like we were talking just before coming on air, TikTok, and everybody wants things done immediately, and everybody's got they feel as if they've got a natural born right to things, and it must come quickly, and if it's not quick enough, it's not good enough. And sometimes, and especially now, I think in life, in politics, in work, in business, things tend to swing from one end of the extreme to the other, and then gradually they balance again, and then something else happens and it goes out to extremes again. And I think not only every industry at the moment and the world in total, but we've got to come back to some sort of semblance of balance. There's too many negative issues happening and making people not sure what's right, what's wrong. And in my opinion, there's a lack of basic discipline and respect as well, which is a huge shame. So I know where you're coming from there, but more specific challenges, Henrik. What did you sort of think? Oh, blimey, I'm not 100% sure what I do here, or something that hit you and you think to yourself, God, dear Lord above, I wasn't expecting that one.
No, but there had obviously been a number, and you can say the most underlying thing we have been working on is how to further the delivered as promised element. How do we make sure you have an organization that when we promise somebody somewhere in the world that it's going to be somewhere else at a certain time, that it actually happens, and it's not just something we say hee and then we run away. And implementing, you can say, building on what Emirates already have, and then implementing a even more service-oriented culture with the right processes behind it, and getting used to that you have processes to repeat them, not just to put them on paper. No. This is actually how we do it. That was, you can say, challenging.
Yeah.
So I would say was, you can say, we outsourced our use of IT. We used the basic systems guide chain, and we outsourced it to Acilia and switched it over in September 22nd of September 2020. And we did that on the day we had predicted 18 months ahead as part of our business plan. But that was for everybody. Yeah, Henrik, you set a date now 18 months ahead. You will cut over on the 22nd of September 2020. That's nice. And nobody ever believed that would happen. But we went into it and said, no. We're going to have weekly follow-up meetings from the beginning, all managers present, and that date is cut in stone, cast in iron, cannot change. But no. Do we have a problem here? Excellent. Let's escalate that early. Let's just get it dealt with and make sure that we get there on time. So instilling this, you can say, when we say something, we plan something, then we actually do it. That also took some effort, but I have to say, on the other hand, was also very positively received by people. Again, because most people like to be associated with success. It's always irritating to, oh no, I have to explain an excuse. Oh, not good. Most people like to be associated. We did it. And the moment the people around here, you can say, understood, no, that date, the 22nd of September, that is the date. Then it also, you got the right, you can say, spirit and the drive. And of course, there was lots of challenges and things that were difficult, and sure, and it was not a perfect ride, no way, but we actually made it by, from the beginning, focusing on this is going to be the day, and that day is not going to change. And by the way, I may be, you can say, have a nice fancy title, but I'm going to be with you every week in the status meetings, looking into the details. And that they were maybe also not that the same level used to that kind of managerial interest in what actually happens. But at the end, they became part of the success. And well, here we are.
Major part of the success. But Henry, what you've touched on there, and things that I'm finding at the moment from involvement in projects that I'm with, managers aren't actually there. As soon as they come in, they want to be somewhere else. They're looking at their phone, they're looking at their watch, and the people who are putting the hard graft in, they know that. And it's so demoralizing and demotivational. And then people start having excuses, and they've got to go here, they've got to go there, and they don't actually give it the time. And as a manager in today's world, if you want people to follow you, you've got to let them know that you are there. You'll be somewhere else afterwards, and you may be wanted to be somewhere else, but while you're there with a project, with a deadline, and to lead by example, you have to be there.
Well, I can say, Chris, and you're welcome to come and join us one morning. The most important half an hour of my day is from 7 to 7:30. There we have our daily ops call, where around 18 people is together discussing what happened yesterday and what is on the table for today. Every day, unless a department head or a supervisor, manager is traveling on duty travel on leave. But if you're not on leave, on duty travel, you're part of that 7 to 7:30 session. And I've made it, you can say, clear that I'm there with the same game rules. And that means we have every day that very short cycle conversation where reasonable senior management is involved. And there's this feeling, oops, we take these things serious. That goes down to, and you may laugh now, that every morning we see, and that takes roughly 5 minutes, we see through a picture collection of all the ULDs we built yesterday. We obviously, when I came here, there was the usual discussions, operations you don't optimize. So we could have loaded much more cargo if you guys were more serious. Okay, that's fair point. So what we were thinking, what do we do? Big electronic solution, difficult to implement quickly. We do something simple. We ask the guys when they build a ULD, take a photo and upload it. And next morning, and tell them, by the way, the next morning, the entire management team is looking at it. First of all, what happened was that commercial stopped complaining, because when they were complaining, we sent them a set of the pictures so they can look for themselves. But what also happened is that the people probably also did a better job, because who wants to take a picture of your own job, send it to your boss, know that he looks at it without being sure that you did a good job? So it was the most, we were playing or speaking to, appealing to the most simple of you can say behavioral drivers. And we at the same time see things once in a while and say, oops, why is that arrow down where it should be up in terms of loading directions?
Yeah.
As part of our just being very low practical about here, how we very concretely go about management here, that we look at a series of pictures every day of every ULD built in Dubai from yesterday.
No, I think that's right. That's right, Henrik. And at the end of the day, that's looking more at practical performance rather than administrative reports. And I think there's a huge difference. And the way people can do things nowadays, the speed of logic and common sense, which is something that the industry managed to accomplish during COVID. What a learning lesson it was, how quickly decisions could be made if they were logic and if they were common sense. And why did it take something as terrible as COVID to teach people how to be faster with decisions and have more clarity, more competence, more compliance, and ultimately more control? Why did it take that long?
I can only echo and totally agree. I mean, and if there's a takeaway from COVID, it is that you would just hope and pray that we will now remember that that we can when we want to. Now we could when we had to. That means we also can when we want to. And you can also only pray that we as humans will take that along and learn it. I mean, just see the speed with which STC or supplemental type certificates were issued for cabin loading of passenger aircraft. It took no time. Fantastic. Later on, all these vaccines needs cooling. Oops. The dangerous goods rules for dry ice was 36 or 37 years old. Modern aircraft had better ventilation systems. So discussions with EASA, with Boeing, Airbus, FAA, bang, 3 months, we doubled the amount of dry ice you can load on an aircraft. Any airline, not unique to Emirates, this is an industry level. So we had a problem we could, and if we could just forget the rest of COVID, horrible, but just take that with us. Because I couldn't have said it better than you said it before. It is so irritating when we always cover ourselves behind red tape, or no, that has to go to a committee, or no, that's only next quarter. No, why not do it now when you want to?
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. And Henrik, another thing that really I just find so irritating. Right, COVID, we got to learn to live with it. Fair enough. So now we've come out, so we should be bringing things back better and forget a legacy of things that were done incorrectly. So it's a great opportunity to do things differently. I'm going to come to all the global challenges that we got in a minute, but with that in mind and having the opportunity to do things differently, now, unfortunately, people are becoming professional at playing blame bingo. So when things go wrong, they've got the most technically gifted and descriptive reasons as to why it went wrong, instead of looking at it from the customer's perspective and saying, my goodness me, whatever has happened, the end result is wrong for the customer. So how do we collectively get this right along the supply chain, with partners, with whoever it may be, with stakeholders? Why are everybody now becoming so professional at blame bingo?
Yep, that's a good question. It is partly because we are in a situation, as you can see in many airports, for example, there is sickness and staffing issues. There were some airports that was a little bit late in preparing for the summer period, despite airlines having told them that they would ramp up. There are people who left the industry. So in a situation of uncertainty, it is for some people easier, exactly what you say, to call a scapegoat bingo. And you can say just point in all other directions instead of, but you could say, the old saying is that when you point at somebody else, with three fingers at yourself, right? Because what did I do? When I'm now pointing at Chris, I could also ask with three fingers, Henrik, what did I do? And I think that is where you should start. And what you see at the industry right now, from that perspective, I don't think is healthy.
Yeah, no. And
I think if you look at the airport services and the ground handling agents side of it, I mean, and I think we touched on this before, but airlines have over the years themselves created part of the situation we have today with a continuous procurement drive that has focused on one thing only. and that is how many cents can I cut off the kilo rate?
Cost. Yeah.
I mean, it is, what is it, 5 or 6 years ago? Don't take me on, but something like that. When I think Walmart and McDonald's in the US decided no longer to be market leading in low payment, because they, as far as I read news stories, found out that their cost of attrition and high rotation was actually far higher than paying more per hour, having lower rotation, actually get a better quality of work. Voila. Gang. That is something that airlines and GHAs, I know the whole story because I grew up in those days where you wanted to outsource. It came from monopolies, blah, 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 blah. So in the beginning, it was potentially very expensive, but this never-ending cost drive without looking at what is being done and how it's being done makes no sense. And if I can make a parallel, and to the thing I'm going to ask now, I unfortunately don't have the answer, because if I had the answer, I would be a billionaire by now, but let me try anyway. In airlines cargo sales, airlines often rely on GSAs, general sales agents, on GS, general service and sales agents, which is a business model that typically works out very well, because the general sales agent is typically be paid a percentage of the revenue sold. So they have an interest in creating maximum revenue. So that's good for the airline. I got max revenue out of that station. It's good for the GSA, because the more revenue, the more percentage I get. Everybody happy, nobody wins, right?
Yep.
Then you come to the GHA airline relationship, where in reality, the GHA is somehow motivated to spend as little time as possible per ULD. So optimization is lost somewhere. Sorry, we need to get to the next pallet. Because, and you know, Chris, like, well, the best pallets are built by forwarding agents, not by airlines. Why? Because forwarding agents, they want to optimize the space they bought from the airline. Where the airline just want to pay the handling agent as little as possible. And by that, think that here we save some money. But my humble opinion is that in many occasions, it has been the most expensive saving ever. And business model should be developed. And this is unfortunately the answer I don't have yet, but hopefully one day, a business model of exchange for service of money between airlines and handling agents, where you, like in the GSA relationship, the GHA is positively motivated to optimize, having a benefit from it, while the airline, of course, also enjoying the benefit of the optimized load. Now, that would be an interesting one.
No, you're right, 100%. And the other thing as well is when the forwarder's got all the cargo there at one time, they can optimize it, whereas the GHA gets the cargo in dribs and drabs and very late, and they've got no chance to fully optimize and turn in efficiencies, which is also an airline forwarder relationship issue. Because if you look at one of the things that I think is good now, years ago, I used to turn up late for a flight, and I'd say to someone behind the desk, look, don't worry, I'll run. I can get there. Please let me have a chance. And they'd maybe give you a chance, even if they knew it was so far away you wouldn't make it, but you had a chance. Then now you go up and you put your card, your boarding pass on security. You don't get through security if you haven't got enough time. So that's so important. And that's what cargo needs to a degree. A little bit of agility, and I steer away from the word flexibility, but agility is so important. But flexibility can be a little bit too bendy, and then you end up causing problems everywhere else. But again, and you look at the company's values now and mission statements, and when you see the word excellence, I just find it. I think, how can you put a word excellence in when our business is the way it is at the moment? It's so far behind on digitalisation. The transparency, the tracking is very poor, and most importantly of all, when something goes wrong, it's a percentage of how much went wrong, not what it means to that particular customer.
I would like to think that some airlines, I mean, again, there is the air cargo market, in my humble opinion, is not necessarily just one market. You will have some shipments where it is very important they are there on Friday at 10 o'clock. It is parts for a conveyor belt, for a assembly line, or whatever. They are really needed. Then there are cargo that needs to be there next week, but it don't have time to be sailed because that takes 40 days. So we use air freight. So there are, you can say, customers who don't need it to be there on Friday at 10 o'clock and are not willing to pay what that costs. Then instead they can work with a carrier, an airline that offers a service. Well, yeah, it will be there. They may say Friday, but they may mean Monday. You never know. But that is also okay. And I think many forwarders are quite, you could say, astute in their procurement of capacity, very well knowing when is it we need what. When is it we need it to be there Friday at 10 o'clock? And then we book that service. And, then we have to pay for it. And if it doesn't have to be there, but just Monday and Tuesday is still fantastic and great, fine. Well, then there is other suppliers in the market. So I think the discussion is more complex than that, because the demands from the customer is also very different. And you go and see e-commerce is booming everywhere in every dimension. But also there, you can either, it takes a long time and then you don't pay anything, or you can get it like bang, bang, immediately, and then you have to pay some more. So that is also, as a consumer, we have the choice what we want to do. And I don't think in that sense, consumers and companies act kind of the same way to these issues. So I think it's more complex than a discussion about excellence per se, because you can be excellent in making sure that people get their things sometime next week. I think the base problem is, or issue is, what did you promise people? Did you promise somebody to be there on Friday? Then better be there.
Yep, no, totally agree. Now you just touched there on e-commerce. Another issue that
I had to.
Both the pair of us used to discuss dangerous goods, hidden dangerous goods in e-commerce.
Ooh.
What an absolute nightmare.
And here I'm happy to say that we are already last year started to introduce fire containment equipment. So either covers, bags, or we actually bought 2,200 AKQs, so LD3 containers that are TSA certified fireproof, as the beginning of rolling out the full protection. I mean, it is dangerous, and there's no two ways around it. There's been a number of high-profile both accidents, but also incidents that did not become full-scale accidents. And of course, if you ask me, Henrik, what really makes you not sleep at night? I think it's down to that issue, that I wake up during the night with a phone call from our control center saying, we have an aircraft in bad situation because it's burning downstairs. I think for any cargo operations manager, it is, you can say, the only thing. The rest you could say is manageable, is challenges and things we can take care of. But this with undeclared, or even declared but wrongly packed or low quality dangerous goods, and here we of course primarily talking lithium battery stuff, that is in reality really scary, and it's almost criminal that some people actually try to, you could say, can we get this without thinking that they're actually running, and they're not trying to be dramatic now, but they're actually running a risk with other people's lives.
Yeah, no, 100%, Henrik. And if you look at even on the trucking on the road and now at sea as well, you look at the examples that are happening on such a regular basis. In my opinion, those examples should all be consolidated, and there should be a more stringent compliance exercise done downstream. So when people are actually, looking to send their goods, or companies are doing it, it's very, very clear from a set example or a set series of questions that you're not just responsible, you can be accountable for misdeclaration or misappropriation of what you consider to be okay to send. And it's the downstream disciplines that need to be put in place. Otherwise, very difficult to control. Now, difficult to control, inflation, wars, all these things that are happening, resignations, labor shortages. So all these things have all come about, and they're all there now. And now on top of it, now you got BOC. So you got the business owners now like Amazon and Maersk creating their own vertical with their own aircraft, and not just a few aircraft, a solid fleet of aircraft. So do you think now, like in the old days, anybody that's been in the business long enough, and you'll remember this, even with the moisturizing creams, but one of the first things that was silly to do was the console from an airline's perspective. The second thing was all of those lovely smalls, the tiny ones that paid so much money, not giving them the respect that was necessary and giving a fair price and a fair service. And then somebody just comes along and says, do you know something? I can make loads of money by doing very little with the console. I can make loads of money by taking over all the smalls. Do you not think now with the BOC and all these, all the forwarders and shipping lines and and e-commerce giants now thinking, well, do you know something? I'd like to be in charge of everything, so I don't have to waste time with all these different parties because they just can't get that process together. Do you not think now that's the next biggest disruptor that we're going to have to deal with?
Totally, yes. And I mean, of the things you mentioned and the things you read about and talk about, I mean, I think what Amazon is doing is quite a wake-up call, especially if you look at Amazon's track record of how they do things. I mean, they started by creating a bookshop online, phenomenal. It became more than just a bookshop, it became an everything shop online. And it became so successful that other people saw it as a place, as a marketplace. And I don't know the percentages, but today, most of the products sold on Amazon, as far as I understand it, is not Amazon selling it, but other people using their platform. They grew even bigger by allowing other people and making a profit out of that. Growing this big in an online platform, they needed phenomenal data power. So, okay, they built big data centers and whoopsie, wow, we're actually good at this. So now they sell data power or data center cloud services. And if you look at, as far as I understood, some of their annual reports a little bit, a major part of Amazon's profitability is not necessarily out of retail services, but out of running cloud services. Phenomenal. Yep. So what is it they're going to do now? Are they going to make the forwarding, replace the forwarding agents by providing the service that is really needed? You could say today we have a fundamental approach to things where you go from a manufacturing somewhere in the world, you take the cargo to a wholesale facility closer to the retailing market, and then you put it to the retailer. So there's a stop in between because that made sense when everything came by ship, etc.
Yeah.
With e-commerce, there's a good opportunity especially for higher value commodities, that is being taken away. So yes, it's more expensive to do it by air, but if you can take away the need to have an intermediate storage and a two-step transport, if I can term it like that, if you get what I'm talking to say, then maybe that might actually compete with the traditional more than 100-year-old distribution model. And there I would imagine, without being a specialist in Amazon, but looking at how they tend to do things, that they would have the cloud to disrupt things. The airline, the shipping companies that goes into airline industry is a little bit a different ball game. It is potentially partly an issue of sitting on solid cash boxes that somehow needs to be invested in something and extending their own service, where on the seaside, there's more of a relationship between shipper and shipping company than there is an airline, where we both know that there's always a forwarder in between. So that is probably also going to grow. So as an airline, do we need to be concerned, not in the short term, I would imagine, but the forwarding agent, you could say, is business model is a little bit under pressure. And let's not forget, when I talk about it like an airline like that, is that today still 50% of all cargo capacity is provided on passenger aircraft, and only 50% is provided on freighters. And the passenger aircraft are still gonna travel. Of course they are. So that capacity is still going to be available, whatever these people do. And that means that the Amazons of this world, Alibaba, whatever they're called, all very respectable companies, they would of course also over time tap into what the passenger networks can do for them, especially to markets where the volume will not immediately, here we have to place a 747 freighter straight into this and this market, but their passenger airlines, as usual, provide the extra capacity required.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I was talking to somebody. In the I'd say e-commerce royalty, and they just made a joke. You know, we were out one evening, and they just said, "Look, we know how to do last mile and first mile and last mile. What we're struggling with is why it's taken so long for the middle mile muddle to be resolved, and now we're getting into that as well." And you know, that's the sign of a major change within the business when they look at it like that and they say, you know, you've had so long to make things better, but you've just been busy being busy and you haven't got better, and you know you need to get better. Just for your understanding here, I think I've just had a little power outage here. So let me just check to see what's happened. Yep, I've had a little power outage. So for those watching, the only thing that's available at the moment is a little bit of backlight Hopefully it'll come back on in a minute, but you don't need to see me. You need to see the good young looks of Henrik. So a question I've got for you whilst I'm in the dark, Henrik, and whilst you're answering it, I'm just going to get up and see if there's a power outage or something, because I'm in a hotel. But what advice would you now give to the person who's going to take over your role?
Oh, well, and let me put it like this. Let me just reach out for something.
Yeah, keep going.
When I came to this job, and one of the first weeks, I had this little sign manufactured and distributed to all the people who work for me, basically saying our mindset should be that we will never be perfect, but we daily strive for perfection. What does this mean? Well, this means that the journey never ends. And now that you are back, let me just re-show the design that I manufactured.
So look, we will never be perfect, but we daily strive for perfection. That comes back to my sort of criticism of the word excellence in people's vision and values, because how do you measure excellence, for goodness sake, you know?
Yeah, and
it's always good to strive for something, and it's always good to reflect on where you stand within that within that target.
So what this says is basically, we know that we are not perfect. And then you can either sit down and cry, or you can say, okay, every day is in another day to improve it. And that is going to be part of, you can say, if you ask the question about the handover, is please continue to question everything we do. Yeah. And please continue to find the things that we can do even better. And I mean, isn't that what human development basically is about? If not, we would still be running around the trees, banging each other on the head with a stick. But no, every generation takes the whole thing a little bit further, and I'm not in doubt that my successor will take what we're doing today in Sky Cargo to the next level, and that would be normal. So if it's the person, whoever it is, who's going to come here, should not say, okay, this is excellent, now I'm going to have a vacation job, lean back. No. And that would also not be the way Emirates function as a company. That would be, okay, guy, now is the journey, or girl, sorry, any person. Now it is the next journey ahead, full speed.
Yeah, no, you're right, and it's and it's something that's so important that you keep moving forward, step by step, inch by inch. Another little question for you: how do you think you'll be remembered, Henrik?
I don't know whether I will be remembered, and I don't have to be remembered. I mean, I have enjoyed my time in the industry. I really have. I fell into it by accident, an incident. But then never got out of it, and you can say I think that I have enjoyed transport industry phenomenally. I've had the pleasure of having a number of jobs that have been challenging, and that has been a joy to me. If somebody thinks that I was good at helping them to get forward, then it's great. But I'm not. You can say if people forget that Henrik existed, that is also perfectly okay. Yeah.
Now, well, I'll remember you, my friend, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in Athens between the 5th and the 7th.
Absolutely, I look forward to.
And when is your last? When's your last week or your last month?
That is still in you can say that is still not determined. I mean, as I'm you can say leaving for stopping to do full-time work like this, it is not something that has to happen on a specific date. So there I'm at the service, and therefore Nabil have also decided that I should stay business as usual in office without changing anything. I'm doing my job the way I've done it all the time. Yeah. And I think people around me have gotten used to that. I have not changed anything just because this fundamental decision was taken. I wouldn't know how to do it different anyway. So
no, exactly.
So that would be let's now there will be a selection process, and when that has concluded, then we will find a date. There's no hurry, no drama.
No, good. Yeah, sometimes if you're going at a nice speed, if you take your foot off, it's sometimes harder to drive than if you maintain that speed or a little bit above. So, and I wouldn't think you would anyhow. I wouldn't think you would at all. Now, what will you miss? What do you think you'll miss the most, Henrik, when you do walk away?
The people, the interaction with the people, the setting of goals, this drive. Even if you set yourself a stretch goal, this drive, how do we get there? The discussions when you get into, now we have 200 little problems here to get there. that teamwork has been my permanent motivator. I mean, working with my team here has been extremely motivating in the sense of that after some years they got to understood, yes, we can. Yes, of course you can. Whoever told you you can't?
Yes,
they were not potentially previously allowed to the same extent, but most people can if they are allowed to. And that interaction with the people around me is probably one I'm going to miss most.
Yeah, no, I can imagine, Henrik, and yeah, I can well imagine that from you. Well, listen, my friend, look, it was a nice chance to catch up with you before everybody grabs a bit of you before you actually leave. And I'm looking forward to at least a good couple of social hours with you in Athens.
Absolutely.
Been an absolute pleasure knowing you all these years, mate. And you've been good company. Challenging at times. I can remember being opposite sides to certain discussions, but always respected your point of view. And like I said, it's been an absolute pleasure to have known you as a colleague and a friend. And I look forward to a couple of glasses of something special in Athens. And good luck with whatever you do next.
Thank you, Chris. And I can only say I very much look forward to see you again in Athens. And I guess we will still be in contact. I mean, the world is not that big. And I also, that is one of the things I do like about this industry, that it is small enough so that people know each other and you actually feel that you have a relationship to the people you know in the industry. And I think that's a good thing and a thing that should not disappear. So look forward to Athens and beyond. Yeah,
there you go. There you go. Maybe that's a good title. To Athens and beyond. Sounds like something out of Star Trek. No, but seriously, good luck, my friend, and spend some quality time with the family and anybody else. That's enjoy every minute of what you choose to do.
My wife look forward to that. The first thing I do in the morning is to look at her instead of look at my telephone.
Fair play to her. She's a brave lady. Obviously, that's why you keep putting that moisturising cream on. Listen, good luck, my friend, and look forward to seeing you. Thanks very much for your time, Henrik.
Take care. Thank you, Chris. Thank you very much.
Cheers.